Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 202nd ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing well. Do you want to share with us what's amusing you?
Literally right when you started your delicious intro that you do so well every week, I just read something funny on my phone.
Oh, okay.
That popped up, and it's not related to this podcast at all.
All right. Sounds good.
And it has to do with plumbing.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Whoever has having plumbing issues gets it figured
We'll
out.
send out our best wishes.
How you been?
I'm so busy, man.
You went on vacation.
Yes, I did. I went to Virginia, and it was fine. It was just fine. Saw some family out there. Talked to a lot of people I don't really know. It was my wife's family, but it was nice. You meet some new people and see some sights, and spent a lot of time in the car.
What was your favorite site?
That's a great question, actually. I don't know. I feel like there were some mountains in the distance. We didn't really, I don't know what, maybe some smoke in the old Smoky Mountains.
Oh, sure.
Driving through Tennessee. Well, I'll tell you what the best site was. It was
Okay.
definitely seeing that Buc-ee's.
Oh, really?
In Tennessee somewhere. That was a great experience.
We're getting one of those in Springfield.
That was absolute insanity.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy.
Have you been one?
Yeah.
Been to one?
In Texas, yeah. I think they're from Texas originally.
Yeah, this one was pretty new, and I couldn't even walk anywhere. There's so many people. It was just it was like high school walking. You can't even see the floor. There's so many people, or something like that.
It's like the biggest gas station ever, and it's like a supermarket basically.
Basically, yeah. I mean, they have they're just making food right there and stuff. It's like a Bass Pro of convenience stores.
So you got to go see a gas station. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the highlight of the trip for sure.
Yeah. This week we're going to talk football recruiting. It's that time of year. It's a little bit slow. Missouri's had some misses. I think the fan base is getting a little anxious. So we're going to talk about that. What should be the reaction to the current state of affairs for the 2023 recruiting class? Before we get to all of that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. If you haven't already, leave us a review on the podcast platform that you listen to us on. And, of course, you can support us directly through Patreon, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Let's see. Before we do football, let's talk about a basketball commitment. Trent Pierce commits to Mizzou basketball. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, averaged 16 points, 11 rebounds as a junior this past season. He's listed at 6'8" most places, but stuff I've been reading saying he's closer to 6'10". So somewhere between 6'10", 6'8", kind of a versatile forward, I would say. Looks like he has an excellent shooting form. Can making lots of threes at the high school level, blocking shots. I would say maybe not the most athletic player you'll ever see, but he can finish in transition and make some moves in the lane to get a layup or a dunk. And he's like top 100 player in the country, 4-star player by almost every outlet. The 24/7 Sports Composite has him as 80th nationally. So that's actually a huge pickup for Dennis Gates.
Yeah, this is it's been fun, man. We've talked about just the total opposite in recruiting style from the previous basketball coaching staff, and which was honestly one of the biggest reasons why I was ready to move on from Conzo Martins, because I missed this kind of stuff. I missed being interested in what the staff was doing, or even being aware of who the staff was watching or who they're paying attention to, who they were offering, and so it's been a resurgence of that kind of stuff, and it's been so fun to follow. Missouri is back in contention with elite recruits. They're trying really hard to be in those conversations, and it's really fun to watch. And Trent Pierce is to me just a prototypical example of a high ceiling player. He's like you said, he's not insanely athletic, but has the ability to kind of maybe supersede some of those shortcomings with his length and his ability to step out and shoot. and definitely the kind of player that I think is really important in the Dennis Gates offensive system too, in just being able to step out, stretch the floor, set picks, and I don't know. I'm super excited, and it's a great start to the class.
Yeah, so this was kind of like a quick turnaround. I think they had him on campus in June, and then like a month later, he's a commit. It was a longer process, I think, with Anthony Robinson, the point guard that we already have for this class. But a 3-star guard, 4-star forward, both capable shot makers. I think their shots will translate to the next level. It's a terrific start to the class.
Yeah, which, by the way, Anthony Robinson, real quick, I think he is going to be a lot better player than he probably looks like on paper right now, and has performed really, really well in some recent performances in some different events his team has been playing in the summer. So he looks like an even better get than he did 2 months ago or whenever we landed him. And
Pierce as well is playing against some really tough competition.
Yeah.
And looking good doing it. I mean, some really highly rated prospects he's going up against. It's still super early, but the 24/7 Sports rankings, Missouri is 11th in the country.
Yeah, and that's probably under ranking Anthony Robinson.
Yeah, and number 2 in the SEC, behind only Kentucky so far.
That's where we should be.
Yeah. It does remind me of like that first, the Michael Porter Jr. recruiting class, when it was like, oh, we actually are going to finish like top 5 in the country.
Yeah.
And 24/7 Sports has this little tool where you can like kind of play make-believe and like add players to the recruiting class and see what that does to your ranking and everything. And I remember putting, what was his name?
Kevin Knox.
Yeah, Kevin Knox, because he came on the recruiting trip and everything. And adding him to the class, we were still below Kentucky and Duke. We would have been like 3rd in the country, even with another 5-star player.
That's insane.
Yeah. So I don't think the 11 ranking will stick,
Probably
but it's a lot better than being not in the top.
It's fun to think
10.
about.
Yeah. Still a long ways to go on that recruiting class for basketball, but it'll be interesting to see how many freshmen they take, or like, traditional high school recruits they take.
Yeah, it's like if you looked at this team 10, 15 years ago as far as like eligibility, and you're just like, well, I hope you're good this year because you're losing a lot of experience, and next year you're probably going to be super young, but obviously the transfer portal's changed everything. You can be relevant at any time, at any year ever.
Yeah.
But I still think they'll probably take 5 high school players potentially. I still think that's probably the preferred method of sustained success over time is high school talent, but I don't know that's for sure though. I mean, it's very possible they could only take like 3 high school players if they feel like they want to mix in some experience in the portal,
or if they knew something about players returning for their COVID year or something. I'm super optimistic with recruiting for basketball.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to go off of so far, but as soon as they announced C.Y. Young, as an assistant, I was like, this is huge, and I think we're gonna see basketball recruiting like we haven't seen in a little while.
Yeah, I think I'm already impressed with the staff's like effort and interest in recruiting in general, and just their ability, like their eye for talent so far. I'm really impressed by their ability to just like kind of see beyond the rankings, use their connections and their talent evaluation abilities to like find people has been awesome.
I'll be interested to see what Missouri kids they make a priority over the next couple recruiting cycles. I think 2023 is not the best for in-state, unless you're talking about what's it called in Branson?
Yeah, Link Academy.
Yeah, Link Academy.
Yeah,
which
doesn't really count.
Yeah, I mean,
it kind of does.
It's counting for Arkansas. They're making it a priority.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind seeing that happen with Mizzou, but it's not like those guys necessarily have a connection to the state of Missouri.
No. I think there's a pretty big 2025 recruit. I can't remember his name. That's maybe at Tolton. I think Missouri's got the right guys in place to have a chance at landing him in a couple years.
Yeah, it's crazy that there's like already There's like legitimately already 2025 offers going out. All right, so switching gears to football. Actually, while we're on basketball, let's talk about some of our listeners gave their their all-time Mizzou basketball teams after we did that segment. I've got one here. I'm just going to call him Man Slaps on YouTube.
Man Slaps
on YouTube. He said for coach, he was going with Mike Anderson, but he thought it was kind of a toss-up between him and Quinn Snyder. He has his starting 5, point guard Clarence Gilbert, shooting guard Denman, then Kareem Rush, Damari Carroll, and Arthur Johnson at the 5. And then the bench, he has Stephen Hanna, Ricky Paulding, Linus Kleza, and Kim English. And he gave some clarification. He said he picked Stephen Hanna over Pressey at the 1 just because he liked his overall game better and thought if he hadn't been dismissed from the team, he would have had as good a career as Pressey, potentially.
I know that makes you angry.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about Stephen Hanna just because it, like our commenter here says, it is a little bit more hypothetical, like what he could have been.
Sure.
But I get it.
I was kind of reading something for a second there. Did you kind of explain what we're talking about for anyone that may not have caught
last
week?
So last week we gave our all-time Mizzou basketball teams, including a coach. We did a starting 5 and then 4 bench spots. Mm-hmm. And so we asked for comments giving their all-time teams.
For sure. I had a couple people say their team on Twitter. Rob Schaefer said Flip and Ratliff, they were amazing together. Tiller, Denman, and Damari Carroll. So that's a pretty good team there. He didn't list any bench spots. The Misery Index on Twitter said that his starting lineup would be Phil Pressey, Marcus Denman, Kareem Rush, Damari Carroll, Ricardo Ratliff, and then also lists.
I think is that the same as mine? I think that's the same as my top 5.
That's your exact starting lineup. Yeah. Wow, that's a real connection there.
Yeah.
Then lists Kim English, Michael Dixon Jr. Honestly, Michael Dixon Jr., if I could do it again, I might consider putting him in there somewhere.
He's perfect for coming off the bench.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for sure. Lawrence Bowers, Ricky Paulding. He said Zaire Taylor. I thought that was an interesting one. Obviously, he's very famous for the game-winning shot against Kansas, but let's see. He also said we're sleeping on the GOAT, Leo Lyons. So.
Potentially. Yeah, I don't know. He had a really good junior season.
Mm-hmm. I would like he was distantly considered for me maybe, but not seriously.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give one more. At MU Scott on Twitter says Keon Dooling, Kareem Rush, Ricky Paulding, Damari Carroll, Arthur Johnson, and his bench is Linus Kleza, Jabari Brown, Jordan Clarkson, Denman, English, Bowers, all those guys, but also lists Jonte Porter.
Yeah.
Who you said. So
yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a nice throwback, going with kind of all older school starting 5, and that would be an excellent team.
Mm-hmm. Man. It's fun to think about the old days, and obviously not very many guys listed from super recent years, but that could change.
One other person, Tim on Facebook on on what's his platform? YouTube. He said,
"We're big on Facebook,
Our Facebook reach.
Every once in a while, whenever we say something controversial, that's where we end up."
That's true. He said that we need to make these teams in NBA 2K and play each other.
That's a great idea. Except we need some kind of unbiased person to rank the players, because I don't trust you to rank Phil Pressey.
He'll be a 99 overall. That would take so long. I've done that kind of stuff before, creating Mizzou players in NBA 2K specifically. It takes a long time, but
didn't we do
satisfying.
It's not Mizzou related, but didn't we do a literal fantasy draft when I was over at your house once?
Yeah.
We did a whole season.
Yeah, we just we did a fantasy draft, just some people that were over at my house, and then we just simmed the entire season to see who won.
To see whose team was the best. Yeah. I don't know why that kind of stuff's so fun.
Yeah. I think it's just the perfect sports nerd type of thing.
Getting to be the GM.
Yeah. All right, now we'll move on to football, and it's been all bad news lately. Cayden Green committed to Oklahoma. So did...
I don't have his name in front of me. I think it's like Adebawore or something like that.
Close enough. He committed to Oklahoma. Amir Herring committed to Michigan, and now we're doomed.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
No.
Okay. We still have Miles McVay's commitment coming up in August.
Not looking great.
We still have Logan Reichert at some point.
Looking great.
There's a few other, 4-star and 3-star players locally. And, Coach Drink and company have not been shy about reaching out to other states to get even 4-star talent, which we'll get into the details on that. But before we get into kind of the big picture look, what's your quick reaction to these announcements not going Mizzou's way?
Yeah, it's been a little exhausting for sure. Just kind of like case after case. It's just like, well, that didn't go our way.
Case IH Red Zone.
Case IH Red Zone, Case Cook, and yeah, it's been kind of a bummer for sure. But nothing like shocking though. We kind of knew what was going to happen. We're competing against the big boys here, man. Like that's a blessing and a curse. Like we've been better in the recruiting game, and we're throwing our hat in the ring, and this is just gonna happen. And it's gonna be really tough to be able to compete brand wise in the recruiting game against some of these other teams until we can consistently get to where we want to be. And honestly, I think NIL makes things. I think it gives us a platform to stand on that we didn't have in the past, and we were probably not even close to being in contention for some of these guys if NIL was not a factor.
So I think there's an overall feeling of what's going on, and that's the question I'm posing to us here. What's going on with the 2023 class? We're fresh off the best recruiting class in Mizzou football history, arguably. The 2022 class got a 5-star guy, and it feels like, if you're just comparing it to last year, it feels like we're going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
However, what we've done is we've dug a little deeper and looked at the big picture a little bit more, and I think it's not as bad as it seems right now.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely doesn't seem good at the moment, but I mean, right off the bat, tell us about the 4-star players comparing the Barry Odom era to Coach Drinkwitz so far.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to kind of feel like a prisoner of the moment. Sometimes it's easy to kind of just get lost in what's happened here recently. And so I think I've said this before, but we're gonna do a little exercise. When in doubt, zoom out. Just kind of let's just kind of back away and look at what's happened in the last couple of years. And I think we're gonna feel a little bit better about where we are than we probably do if we're just looking at the last few weeks. But so I'm gonna take us through the Barry Odom era as far as his recruiting classes, and I think that'll definitely make us feel better about where we are. So. His first recruiting class was 2016. He landed 3 4-star players, and one of those was Nate Strong. In 2017, he landed 1 4-star player, and that was Deron Davis, who I don't think ever made it to campus.
No.
In 2018, there was 2 4-star players, Daniel Parker Jr. and Chad Bailey. Probably the best 2 players that we're going to talk about in the Barry Odom era as far as like recruiting rankings. In 2019, he landed 1 4-star player, that was Jelani Williams. And in 2020, he landed 0 because I'm counting Ennis Rakestraw as a Eli Drinkwitz recruit. So that's 7 4-star players and 5 recruiting classes. That's pretty bad.
Rivals even has Rakestraw as a 3-star.
Oh, really?
By the way.
Okay, I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I actually, now that you mentioned that, I remember that. So, so we'll just completely throw Ennis Rakestraw out of the equation. And Barry Odom has 7 4-star players in 5 recruiting classes.
Or better.
Thank you. All right, let's look at what Mr. Eli Drinkwitz has done in 2.5 recruiting classes. In 2023, we already have 2 4-star players, Brett Norfleet, Jabari Johnson. In 2022, we had 6 4-star players and a 5-star player. You can probably think of who that is. In 2021, we had 5 4-star players. So, like I said, in 2.5 classes, that's 13 4-star players and a 5-star. So 14 players, 4 stars or better. That's twice as many as Barry Odom in half the time. And we have 7 people committed in 2023.
Yeah. So like saying that's half a recruiting class.
That's not even.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's insane. And honestly, this isn't even an attack on Barry Odom. That's just Missouri recruiting, pretty much ever.
Yeah. I mean, like go back a little bit further. Like Gary Pinkel's last recruiting class.
Yeah, some of his last classes were terrible.
Yeah. 2015 was good. Drew Lock and Terry Beckner. But even the 4-star players in that class, some of them
pan out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's important to think about the fact that the best teams that we've had in quite a while, like 2013, 2014, those were products of the 2012 recruiting class. That was ranked 31st in the country. Doriel, Evan Boehm, Marcus Golden were some of the top guys in that class. 2011 class was ranked 48th. I mean, Sheldon Richardson was in that class. So I don't know. I think it's definitely not worth getting too worked up about right now because these in-state guys are going elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's still frustrating to go to the recruiting sites and look at the players in the state of Missouri and see, top guy went to Tennessee, next guy going to Oklahoma, next guy going to Oklahoma, and you have to go down a little ways before you see that Missouri Tiger logo next to somebody's name. That's definitely frustrating. But I think we're just kind of coming back down to earth a little bit from the best recruiting class ever. And honestly, I wonder how much of the relationships amongst the recruits themselves and the players we were going after just happened to fit, so perfectly into the sales pitch and the players that were already on campus and some of that stuff.
Right. I think, it's
the high schools that they were coming from. All of that is a factor into whether they come to Mizzou or not.
Yeah, there's going to be variance in outcomes of anything, and that includes recruiting, and that's just kind of where we are. And and just to compare this to just kind of like think about Missouri's on-field performance in the last couple of years. Like think about historically when Missouri's been good, basically one thing's always been true is they're relying on like experienced, good recruiting classes that take 3-4 years to develop, because that's just the nature of college football in general. Usually those like freshmen aren't really making a huge difference usually unless they're outliers. And I mean, these are the kinds of players that we are relying on as, 3rd and 4th year players are guys like Jelani Williams, Daniel Parker Jr., who's not even on the team anymore. Yeah. Chad Bailey, nothing personal against those guys, but these are that's the caliber of players that are in their 3rd, 4th seasons at Missouri right now, and it's just really hard to be superior or better than expectation whenever you're depending on guys like that to be experienced leaders.
Yeah, and they're just now coming into their own as players where they can kind of shoulder that load, and that's just a handful of guys. And that's you think about those like 2013, 2014 teams, and they had depth and experience in the trenches, and they stayed healthy on the offensive line especially.
And those guys took several years to make an impact.
Yeah.
Even some of the best players we've seen in Missouri history.
Yeah.
Some of the best teams we've had, those guys are not relevant for 3 years of being on campus.
So, and even with the misses that we've had, there are still players out there that we feel good about. So Logan Reichert, we talked about him. He's a 4-star offensive lineman. Marvin Burks 4-star safety. I feel good about him.
Just made a top 5.
Seems like maybe Ole Miss is right there, neck and neck. Texas A&M lurking as well. That might be a situation where we want Texas A&M to, land some
get their guy
5-star Texas player. Yeah. There's Joshua Manning. Yeah. And those are just in-state guys that are 4-star players that we haven't yet missed out on, if you want to look at it pessimistically.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not even closing the book on Cayden Green or Miles McVay until signing day. And I'm not trying to predict a flip or anything like that. Let me get that very straight. He's probably 90% going to Oklahoma, Cayden Green, but I still think that door is open potentially. We still have 6+ months or something until signing day. And Miles McVay probably going to commit to Alabama in August, and I don't think that is over at all until he signs. So I don't know. I'm trying to just keep an open mind on some of these guys. Missouri's gonna land some guys. Better days are ahead.
And there will be players that we haven't even really heard of yet that are from out of state. Mm-hmm. And then maybe they're not 4-star guys, but I don't know. Yeah. I kind of cut you off there. Sorry.
Nope, I was done.
There's at this point, all we've had is bad news for a little bit, so it's totally understandable to kind of be feeling sorry for the recruiting class right now.
For sure, it's okay to be frustrated, definitely.
But I think Coach Drink and the assistants and everybody that's doing the recruiting here has shown they're capable of getting guys, and there's plenty of opportunity still. To make this not, I don't even think I think it can be right in line with 2021.
Yeah.
As far as we have a fringe top 25, top 35 class.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm super high on Brett Norfleet. I mean, he literally just told Alabama no thanks, I'm pretty sure. And Jabari Johnson seems really promising. There's a lot to be excited about, and we're kind of getting to the point in on the field stuff, in season stuff, where some of these recruiting classes we're inching closer to where some of these classes that we've stacked are getting closer to meaningful snaps. And so
and one of our guys in the Discord, he's really good about reminding everyone and himself, I think more than anybody, about Gary Pinkel's first 5 years as the head coach. And it took a while. He had to establish himself, get the recruiting classes under his belt, develop the guys, and then it was year 5 where he started to turn the corner and see big success on the field. And that's not to say we're going to, if the next 2 seasons go horribly wrong and they win 4 games or something like that, there's not going to be much leash for Coach Drinkwitz, but even with the recruiting successes, it's got to translate eventually. But
he's a young coach. I mean, he was a head coach for 1 year before he was a head coach in the SEC. He's gonna have some lessons learned and can maybe take a little bit of time to figure out stuff.
Yeah. So just when you're looking at the depth charts and when you're looking at projections for who's gonna play a lot of snaps, look at how this best recruiting class ever, they are just going to be freshmen. Most of them are not going to play.
Right.
They'll see the field more next year and then be really impact players the year after that.
Yep.
So we're still a ways from this all coming together, and that's super frustrating. I mean, it's really hard to think in terms of 3 years from now.
Football recruiting class periods.
Yes, it's insane. Yes. It's we prioritize, at least the way it is for me, is I'm lasered in on these recruits and I'm so in tune with what's going on with these recruiting battles, and then we get these guys and then it's 3 years later they are like making plays on the field, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. They were part of an incredible recruiting class, and finally they're getting to show it.
Yeah, it's what's rewarding about recruiting and frustrating about it is like if you follow recruiting closely, it's so fun, and to see these guys and their whole process, and committing and showing up to campus, and rising up the depth chart, and to finally see them scoring touchdowns or winning games. It is so incredible to just be able to see the big picture from start to finish like that. But not everybody does that. Not everybody even gets that far.
Right.
And
it's almost like they have two separate career arcs.
Yeah.
There's like their career as the prospect and that whole saga, and then it basically resets once they get on campus.
Yeah.
And you're starting over, earning your spot, waiting for your time. And some guys are able to come in and demand playing time day one because they're that good. But it's very rare.
Yeah.
And
especially when there's a lot of talented young guys around them. Like there's everybody. I feel like everybody is talented at this level, and you got to earn the spot.
And I think that is a good thing to think about when you're looking at the transfers into the program. You have to buy yourself a little bit of time, letting these younger guys develop. And if Drink doesn't feel good about the juniors and seniors that are on the roster that he thinks need to be contributing and just aren't capable, then the only thing he can do is try to bring in impact transfers, or at least guys that are starting caliber.
100%. I think that the transfers that we've added in the last recruiting class or two say so much more about the upperclassmen that are expected to be contributors on the roster than the young guys. Yeah. I honestly don't really think those things have hardly anything in common at all. Like, a junior or graduate transfer player coming in to fill an immediate role has very little or nothing to do with the recruiting class coming in. And those are to patch a leak that that we just got to fill this one hole and get a immediate contributor.
And I feel like a lot of our listeners know this roster pretty well. And just think about we're not bringing in grad transfer wide receivers.
Right.
There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing in grad or transfer offensive and defensive linemen, and honestly, a lot of defensive players, and
that's literally. And we're still. I mean, I'm not. I would feel like we're going to bury them a lot here, but I mean, we're honestly still in that junior senior range of Barry Odom recruits, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So take a deep breath. If 2 years from now, these guys that we've been talking about aren't playing and we're still plugging holes with transfers, then something's wrong.
Yeah, let's panic.
If 2 or 3 years from now we're still finishing around 500 year in, year out, then there's a problem. We'll have to revisit it.
Yeah.
But I think
it's too early.
Yeah, there's no reason to be too worked up right now. And even, big picture wise, no reason. And then even within just the context of the 2023 class, there's still plenty of room to make this I don't think it'll be an outlier on the bad end. Last year may have been an outlier on the good end.
I think so.
But and maybe 23 will be, but I still think there's plenty of room for it to be kind of right there around the average of what we can expect.
Mm-hmm.
If Coach Drinkwitz was the coach for the next 20 years, then maybe the 2023 class would be one of the worst ones, but I have a feeling it would end up being pretty close to average. But we will see. I may be completely wrong. Maybe we will only sign 10 players and no more 4 stars.
I doubt it.
And we will see on player development and all of that kind of stuff as well. But just because, redshirt freshmen and true sophomores aren't making a big impact yet, don't worry.
I'd say just sit back and enjoy the process.
Yeah, might be a little nerve-wracking from time to time though.
Yeah,
but that's part of it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else this week? I hope we didn't come off too condescending there. This is the stuff that we're telling each other and ourselves.
Yeah, we're having
as
a
well.
Conversation. We're not like telling people what to think.
Yeah,
we're sharing our perspective of the situation and trying to like just think. Let's just process this a little bit slower and think about where we are in the process.
It's kind of stuff that helps us not freak out too much.
It's cathartic.
Yeah. Anything else this week?
That's it.
All right. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above. We just didn't say anything.
Oh, by the way, producer Cameron's not here.
Just go the whole episode.
What are we gonna? I don't think we would have. We might not have even realized it until we got to his speaking part, and it just was silence.
Oh my gosh. Shout out to producer Cameron. He was a little under the weather. Didn't want to risk making us sick. We appreciate him for that.
Got the sniffles.
Very thoughtful of him. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Demore, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, Tim Keens, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Garofalo, and Brandon Hanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Nice.
Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week.